The last couple of days we've witnessed a small scandal that matters a great deal, not because it alters the map of power, but because it illuminates how institutions' reputation and responsibility function in public life. Over the weekend, this private email from 2011 resurfaced in which the Duchess of York apparently described Jeffrey Epstein as a steadfast, generous and supreme friend. Within hours, multiple charities announced they would no longer be associated with her. That is the provocation. The reaction has become the story. So, the mechanics, the alleged correspondence, followed an earlier public apology by the Duchess in which she repudiated Epstein and acknowledged a gigantic error of judgment after accepting money connected to him. The newly published message, however, reads as an effusion of praise and consolation, and charities that once welcomed her support, from a children's hospice to a long-standing cancer and health organisation, judged the private words incompatible with their public mission and severed ties. Indeed, frankly, how on earth is it possible for the Duchess of York to be associated on the one hand with Epstein and on the other hand with a children's charity? The list of charities that have shunned her now includes Julia's House, the Teenage Cancer Trust, the Natasha Allergy Research Foundation, Prevent Breast Cancer, and others. Why does this matter beyond the usual royal scandal ledger? Well, first, the charities are not mere adornments on social calendars. Their value rests on public trust, and for organisations that serve valuable purposes that help vulnerable people, children with life-limiting conditions, cancer patients, those at risk from allergic reactions, an ambassador's moral standing is not cosmetic. Donors, volunteers, beneficiaries judge partnerships on probity as much as on publicity. And when a patron's private conduct appears to contradict the values a charity defends, cutting ties is not merely symbolic, it is protective of mission and of public confidence. Second, this episode reframes the perennial question of how the monarchy and the extended royal family manage reputational risk. The Duchess carries no official role, receives no public funds for duties, yet she remains a recognisable royal figure. The palace's calculus is therefore subtle, weighing family loyalty, precedent and the longer-term optics for the crown. Tabloid reporting suggests the king faces pressure to distance the institution from both the Duchess and her former husband, and that there may be filial disagreement behind palace doors. Those are contested assertions, lively press copy, but not settled fact. Third, the episode speaks to a broader moral question about private correspondence and public consequence. In an age when emails and messages can be published decades later, private sentiments can have public effects long after the moment in which they're written. That asymmetry imposes a duty on public figures and those who orbit them, a kind of anticipatory modesty. If one's private words risk harming others, prudence should govern choice of recipient and tone, and that is a lesson for all in public life, not only for the royals. We must also be candid about the limits of pity and the need for accountability. The Duchess's defenders argue that the email was written under legal threat and emotional strain, that she sought to avoid litigation and protect a career in children's publishing. Her spokesperson says the note was sent in the context of advice the Duchess was given to try to assuage Epstein and his threats. If true, that explains motive. It doesn't erase consequence. Institutions which claim to protect children and the vulnerable cannot accommodate ambiguity about those whose private words appear to flatter a convicted sex offender. We should also avoid two errors of reaction. First, cruelty dressed as moral indignation. Public censure is justified where trust is broken, but public shaming for its own sake is corrosive. And Fergie, Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York, is an entertaining and engaging character who has worked very hard to readjust to life after being in the heart of the royal family. Second, indulgence masquerading as forgiveness is a slide back into complacency because someone is one of us. Neither excoriation nor automatic absolution serves the public interest. What should the palace do now? There are three practical priorities, each straightforward. One, to be transparent about roles. If the Duchess is to have no official status, make that clear and consistent across engagements and communications. Two, make decisions guided by principle, not convenience. Patronages are not private perks, they are public responsibilities that should be relinquished if they damage the charities concerned. Three, offers survivors and beneficiaries reassurance, most immediately through statements from affected charities explaining their decisions, and from the royal household clarifying future boundaries, and probably offering other royal members of the royal family who can take over those patronages. In short, clarity, consistency, and respect for the vulnerable. There's also a structural point that ought to preoccupy us. The monarchy's soft power depends on moral authority. When members of the extended family accumulate scandals, that reservoir of authority drains. And the Crown's response to such scandals is therefore not merely managerial, it's constitutional. How the king negotiates loyalty to kin with stewardship of an institution that must embody probity is the central dilemma here. The answer cannot be purely private, it will be judged in public and in history. Finally, what of Sarah Ferguson herself? She has been in public life an uneven figure, charitable, commercially audacious, sometimes imprudent, and that complexity matters. Human beings are capable of good works and grave errors. The public conversation should allow for nuance, recognizing charitable contributions where they exist, while insisting that explanations matter and that those who seek to represent causes must be beyond reasonable reproach. This isn't merely a tale of one email resurfacing, it's a test of our civic instincts. How quickly we protect those in need, how rigorously institutions police the boundaries between private failings and public roles, and how honesty and dominates the response. How courtiers confront moral risk. The charities that made the hard choices to sever ties acted to defend trust. The palace now faces a choice that will define how the monarchy ages in this unforgiving media era, and the public will watch not to consume gossip, although they will, of course, but to see whether the stewardship of public life matches the rhetoric that accompanies it. I would strongly recommend that the king and the senior members of the royal family put the charities that have been inconvenienced first, before anything else. They fix the patrons for those charities as soon as possible, and that those charities are rewarded. So they acquire senior members of the royal family as their patrons. That would be a first stage and an immediate and salutary signal from the king and from the top brass in the royal family. I also think that this is an opportunity to offer a chance for Prince Harry to be rehabilitated. Prince Harry can be brought in with an opportunity to take on some of these charities, or one of these charities, or Meghan. And because the Duchess of York is, broadly speaking, in the same position as as Meghan and Harry, if not a worse position, because she is divorced. She is not part of the royal family. Meghan and Harry are part of the royal family. They're just estranged in another country. So there are there are opportunities here, but there's also an urgency to do something, and I think it is time for Prince Andrew and his household to move. That I think is the bottom line.